The Barbados Street Cemetery in Christchurch, New Zealand, is home to a peculiar legend about a mysterious handprint that appeared on a gravestone and refused to go away. This story centers around the grave of Margaret Burke, who was buried at the cemetery in the late 19th century. 21-year-old Margaret was the daughter of John Burke and Mary Umley. She come all the way from County Galway, Ireland, searching for a better life on the other side of the world. After arriving in the strange new country, Margaret found work as a maid. She lived and worked in the house of William Ready Money Robinson. William got his nickname because he paid for the enormous house and property with cash. Ready Money was a wealthy, well-known local man, famous for racing horses and enjoying the good things in life. During his world travels, he had taken on a man in Panama as his butler, Simon Chedeno. Simon and 3 girls, including Margaret, were all live-in servants in Ready Money's stately home. Chedeno had attempted to court Margaret, who turned him down. He was now seeing a young woman named Mary who he hoped to marry. Margaret and another maid, Catherine Glynn, teased Chedeno about Mary, hinting that she didn't exist and had made her up. This infuriated Chedeno, who thought the girls were mocking his integrity. On January 9, 1871, Robinson's wife Eliza was entertaining a guest, Patrick Campbell, when they heard screaming in the hallway. The door burst open, and Margaret ran into the room with Chedeno in hot pursuit. Patrick valiantly tried to restrain Chedeno, but he violently attacked Margaret, stabbing her several times. Margaret succumbed to her injuries, and the Robinsons found Catherine, also bloody and wounded, cowering in her room. Chedeno was finally overcome, and was arrested and taken to trial. He was found guilty of his crimes, and given the death penalty. He was hanged at Lyttelton Jail in April 1871. Margaret was buried in the Barbados Street Cemetery. The Robinson family organized and paid for the headstone and funeral. Just 1 month later, what appeared to be a bloody handprint appeared on the gravestone. This caused a sensation. The grave became a huge attraction, with people traveling great distances to see it. Many attempts were made to remove the handprint, but the stain refused to budge. The print would become fainter when the stone was wet, but it would rapidly reappear as the stone dried. Experts were perplexed. Scholars, investigators, and skeptics came from across the globe to try to unravel the mystery of the handprint on the grave. Round-the-clock observations were set up, and Margaret's last resting place was watched every minute of the day by those eager to solve the enigma. Young men on a dare would visit the cemetery late at night, or bring their giggling, nervous dates along after dark to scare them, and perhaps steal a kiss amongst the shadowy tombstones. The cemetery custodians were horrified. The cemetery had become a tourist trap, and sightseers were trampling over graves in an attempt to glimpse Margaret's headstone. They removed the headstone and replaced it with an unmarked stone. The handprint returned. The return of the handprint wiped out suggestions that the stain was nothing more than a flaw in the stone. People continued to visit the cemetery to look at the grave, and the local legend grew. It wasn't until 1962, when the stone was smashed by vandals, that the story began to gradually fade away. Today, the Barbados Cemetery is surrounded by busy city streets. Traffic passes without a care. Many of the graves have fallen into disrepair, and most visitors have no inkling of the sensation that once enveloped this small plot of land. However, the curious story of the handprint on Margaret Burke's grave is still whispered by some.